Welcome to the Goodman Podcast. Uh, this week, we're going to be chatting about something else that OpenAI has been up to. So, just as a kind of little bit of background, AI systems are becoming more sophisticated. The sources and ethics of their training data are becoming increasingly critical. This week, OpenAI announced that they partnered with Reddit to use its data for training AI models, particularly enhancing ChatGPT. This deal grants OpenAI access to Reddit's real-time content like posts and replies, and it's going to be using this to improve its AI tools and develop new features for Reddit users. OpenAI will also become a Reddit advertising partner, and as a result, OpenAI CEO Sam Altman has recused himself from the deal's approval because of a potential conflict of interest. So all kinds of weird and wonderful things happening here, Raj. What are your, like I say, initial thoughts on what's been developing?
I mean, it's critical for these companies to have these partnerships. At the end of the day, the AI is as good as the data used to train the AI. And the AI is not given sources of information which is different or valuable and done by real people. Why are we going to be using that tool or that software or that AI? So I think it's paramount that companies like OpenAI, large language models, go out and do partnership deals with not only Reddit-like companies, but development companies like Stack Overflow, which was another deal which they did, or New York Times, which is another deal they've done as well. They need to get that data. They need to get properly written content from newspapers, but also stuff done by users who are knowledgeable and have insights which they will not share anywhere else openly. Reddit is a great tool to get that information. Lingo is, there'll be some bias there, yes, but you get a lot of people talking about stuff which we don't talk openly on news sites. I mean, crypto analysis by individuals, yes, I mean that's going to have a ton of data which is not useful, but perhaps the OpenAI, the AI of OpenAI can figure out what's useful, what's not. Anyway, I feel this is a very interesting deal and it's something which is the right approach. You need to pay people whose platform it is. And yes, it will upset a lot of users who have spent a lot of time editing editing Reddit, but they have given the rights away anyway. So they have said that they will allow it to do different deals. So it's legal. Is it ethical or not? I'm not too sure.
Now, before I move on to the next question, I actually have a question. You've mentioned that people use Reddit to speak openly about stuff that maybe is not covered on news platforms and social media or other platforms like that. Do you think that this deal is going to impact whether they do that now? If they know that what they are saying in this open platform is going to be used as training data, it could have like almost a backlash effect over people not using the platform to discuss these things, as they have been in the past.
Yeah, so there are two parts to it. One is OpenAI's bit, which we just discussed about. Obviously, OpenAI is buying that data or renting the data, them do multi-year deals with them. The other part is Reddit's responsibility to their users. Now, this reminds me, and the analogy for me is YouTube. When YouTube gets advertisers on their platform, they pay the video makers a percentage of that. Well, that was the initial idea, but every year they've been reducing the amount of money they pay out to their hardworking, unpaid users who are doing all the hard work for them. So I think what would be right is that Reddit at some point pays out some of that money, incentivizes the community to build and create some more useful content, and then they get a bit of reaction. But at this point in time, there isn't any talk about that, and I think that's a bit unfair. I think many platforms will be born out of this, where people will be paid out a fee of the action they get from people who train their AIs on their platforms.
Okay. Now, Reddit is focusing on data licensing for growth with agreements totaling over $200 million. The OpenAI deal boosted Reddit's stock by 11%. I mean, we're talking huge numbers here. However, like I've said, this partnership may face user backlash over data monetization, and it kind of reflects the contentious nature of user data usage. So, what implications does OpenAI's partnership with Reddit have for the quality and authenticity of AI training data, and how might this affect performance and reliability of models like ChatGPT?
It's a great question, and I'm very confident that OpenAI has a plan. I would imagine that information which is from trusted news sites like New York Times, BBC, blah, blah, they use that data to train the AI. That will be something which they will say is unbiased and is correct. But equally, if they use Reddit data, they will probably mark it as UGC, user-generated content, so content which is like which can have a bias. And what they might say is that people often say that this is what they believe, and that will be from Reddit, whereas what's a fact will be quoted by New York Times, for example. So they should have a plan there to kind of give different data, different priorities, and how they present that to others. Saying that, Reddit has information which people don't talk about on news sites, people's opinions, and that really matters. We talked about this last time as well about how X, previously called Twitter, uses the comments from the users to look at the news, not the news and summarize that, for example. It's because for me it really matters what people say, because I link to people in my community, and my community members say, "Hey, this is interesting," and I want to read it. If people say in my community it's not interesting, then probably it's not interesting for me, or maybe somebody else who's in a different scenario, different country, different work, for example. So we are social beings. As a race, we always look for forming alliances, forming communities, having a bias. We look at other members of our community to kind of give us advice and to listen to them. Some of this we might take, others we might reject. But to find data and news in today's avalanche of content, we actually rely on our community to kind of tell us what's interesting. Where's the signal in the noise, as it were, needle in a haystack?
Yeah, yeah. Now, there are definitely parallels between what's happening here between Reddit and OpenAI and what we discussed in the episode about Grok and X. But the big difference, obviously, with this particular case is that this data is being collated and used as training data. How crucial is this type of real-time structured data for advancing AI technologies, and what unique benefits does it offer compared to other data sources?
The first thing that comes to mind is the uniqueness of the content. Like Reddit content is gold. So many a times when I look at data on like entrepreneurship or opinions, I often see that the top Reddit posts have great advice. I mean, remember one time searching about what's called FIRE, financially independent, retire early. And the best information on FIRE, so about retiring early or being financially independent, was embedded by far. They even categorized FIRE into two different parts called fat FIRE and lean FIRE, which is basically if you retire, and live your life really to the point where you're really living it up, or lean, as in not having enough money to do everything, but just living. So that kind of information you won't get on BBC, for example. You won't get on New York Times. You will get something where people are creating information to educate other people because they trust the site and they want to build their own reputation, or they want to share, they want to give back, for example. So some unique nuggets of information is sites like Reddit, you get it. Also, just comparing it with Stack Overflow, which is a developer site where you can go and learn about stuff, which is not a deal which OpenAI did. solutions to challenging problems in coding. It's hard to find sometimes. You need to get community-led information, and that might be the only source you can get that information from. So I think Reddit and these other sites where there's community involvement and they are creating this data is far ahead of what you can get from a authoritative news site. And for example, that is YouTube versus any other site on a planet Earth. The videos which you produce on YouTube, if this video was actually being seen on YouTube, it would be, obviously, I won't be producing that for New York Times. Only I can do that for a place where I can post my content and they will value it and get people to see it and like it.
Yeah, yeah. Now, we've spoken a little bit about data monetization. You went through what your thoughts are in terms of like giving back to the community, for example, and you've mentioned Stack Overflow as well. Given the concerns about user data monetization, as evidenced by past protests from platforms like Stack Overflow, how should companies like Reddit and OpenAI address potential user backlash to maintain trust and transparency?
I think the easiest way is to give a piece of the action back to the community. I mean, that's the easiest approach. And that's something that's been done before. It's not the first time it's been done. Even X did it as well. Twitter did that as well. So is YouTube doing it right now and has been doing. I believe it's only fair that the content is being created by the community who spent a lot of time and effort to put it and create it, that they should get a piece of the action. It hasn't happened yet. And with 200 million in their pocket, or hopefully at some point in their pocket, I think they have the resources to put it in and actually will lead to more trust and hopefully in better content.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Final point, I want to speak about the conflict of interest with Sam Altman. He's obviously recused himself due to his stake in Reddit. How does OpenAI ensure that such partners are managed ethically and that there are no conflicts of interest affecting the integrity of their own AI development?
Yeah, I mean, Sam Altman has his fingers in so different pies. This guy, talking about futurists, he's one of the top futurists around us, right? He's in the category of Elon Musk, for example, right? He knows what he's doing and he's put money into things like Reddit, where he knows that is a rich source of data, and then into nuclear power because he knows that's going to be the ones who power the future demands of humanity with power. So clearly he knows what's up, right? So he knows where to invest money in. Now it's a bit sad to see that we penalize him to have the right investments in his portfolio. But equally, yes, there's conflict of interest. You don't want people to be buying stuff from their own companies. Saying that, someone like Sam Altman is inevitable. Like they are going to deals like that to happen. He's going to invest in other companies which might use AI or has invested in companies which will use AI. And remember, Sam Altman was also, he was on Y Combinator's board. He's a very important figure. He's been in this game for many, many years. And he's put money into a lot of companies. I mean, from OpenAI, he didn't want a single dime because he has enough cash in his space. So I think that's an interesting point that at the end of the day, Sam Altman has made his point very clear. I'm not looking to make money from OpenAI. He doesn't have any sort of financial interest, rarely, he's directly so far in OpenAI. So that does remove him from that challenge. But this has been a problem for a very long time. I wish Sam Altman was very clear about his role in OpenAI. I wish he had a simpler structure in the company because of his sort of not-for-profit organization, which OpenAI is, and how the structure of the company is being formed. The whole thing's a bit convoluted. It's not easy for anyone to understand what is Sam Altman's real motive to be part of OpenAI, if it's not financial. So it's a massive gray area. I don't think anyone can put the finger and say this should be done or should not be done. But Sam Altman has kept himself away from the deal, and he said that, well, I will be, I will take money from OpenAI, and yes, I have shares in Reddit, but what can you do about it? Right? It is an important deal, and this is the right choice. Reddit is a great source of information, and it will help to make a clever AI eventually, the next versions or next releases of AI, OpenAI, ChatGPT.
I think that the big issue for users, I mean, I know it's a concern for me, is that it's the same people, it's Microsoft and it's Google and these Amazon, these large, huge multinational billion-dollar companies, and they kind of grow almost too big. And so a lot of the market then is dictated by what they're doing. So when OpenAI started, I mean, it was a startup. It was fresh. It was new. Now they've obviously got the deal with Microsoft, so they've been absorbed almost as well. So I think that having kind of just a few elites at the top dictating what the entire world kind of is moving towards, it is a concern that you hope that they've got the best intentions. But like I say, it's a user concern that we've got a handful of really large companies controlling everything from AI to, well, the entire digital world, really.
I mean, that's not different from anything else in the world, right? Look at the airline industry, look at the train systems, for example, look at anything in the world. Maybe you want to talk about food supplies, for example. Everything's controlled by a few players. They're typically 4 to 5 players which control 90% of the market. And that's true for every sector. I think what's interesting here is that OpenAI is not the only player in the market. There are other people as well. Some of them have chosen to go open source. So in principle, you can grab that piece of software, host it on your own server, and then actually own piece of that action and take it in your own fork it, as they call it in software, and then go in your own direction. That's really interesting. But I would say there is an advantage of having these big companies do it, because AI training and inference is very expensive. Most of us can't spend that kind of cash to host that tool or to train it. And then the data itself is hard to get. So where do you get ethically sourced information? Most likely you have to invest money and buy it or rent it. And that costs money as well. So one approach is we don't do this and stay where we are. Second approach is that we adopt what's available. And yes, there will be from the big 4 or 5 companies.
Followers, what do you think? What are your opinions on this? We'd love to know. We'd love to engage with you. Pop some comments in the comments section. Shoot us a couple of DMs. We'd love to hear from you. And while you're here, don't forget to subscribe. And thanks, Raj, for another interesting discussion. And we'll see you again next week.
Thank you, Megan.